Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight for our free webinar, CBD and the Gut-Brain Axis, featuring Chloe Weber from Radicals. My name is Jeff Bloom, Education Marketing Coordinator here at L.A.C. OMS. For over 40 years, L.A.C. OMS has been striving to promote the growth of acupuncture by providing quality products, great prices, and the best customer service, as well as supporting the many schools and continuing education efforts available. With our free webinars, we intend to provide free educational opportunities taught by some of our industry's most renowned practitioners and educators. I would like to take a moment to acclimate you to the webinar room. We recommend viewing the webinar in Chrome, Firefox, or Safari, as you may experience slowness in other browsers. To the right of the video screen, you will see 3 tabs: Chat, Questions, and Polls. To chat with other attendees or to communicate any technical difficulties, please use the Chat tab. And for questions, please use the Questions tab to assure that our guest speaker answers them at the end of the lecture. Please note that each webinar is recorded, and immediately following the conclusion, you will receive an email with the link to view the video on demand. We will also share the recording with the slides and any complimentary material in the following week or 2 on our blog. You may always visit our blog and use the free web tag to find all of our previously recorded events. From sports acupuncture to CBD to practice management, you will find something interesting for every practitioner on the L.A.C. OMS blog. Now for our featured speaker, we are proud to introduce Chloe Weber. Chloe is the CEO and co-founder of Radical Roots, which is a company that combines CBD hemp extracts with Chinese herbs. Chloe developed an interest in public health and medicine after being diagnosed with cutaneous leishmaniasis in high school. Out of the first cases diagnosed in Costa Rica, Chloe was drawn to study ecology and evolutionary biology at CU Boulder, where she began to understand how diseases evolve along with us and the deep connection between humans and our environment. Eventually, Chloe was drawn to Chinese medicine as a way to address public health issues. She graduated with the Masters of Oriental Medicine from Northwest Acupuncture College in Boulder and spent time studying at the Heilongjiang University Hospital in Harbin, China. After graduating, Chloe co-founded a nonprofit sliding scale walk-in Chinese herb clinic called Urban Herbs. While running her clinic, Chloe was able to dive into the study of herbs and found great joy in community outreach. When Chloe's son Remy was on the journey towards diagnosis, she decided to move home to New York to focus on supporting him. And while working with Remy, this has led Chloe to extensively study integrative neurology and functional medicine that has motivated her to find ways to help children and adults with neurodevelopmental issues and seizures. Please join me in welcoming Chloe Weber.
Hi, guys. Webinar format is very funny, but I just want to say thank you so much to L.A.C. for putting on these webinars. I think it's so fantastic. It's so great to get information out to practitioners, and I'm really, really honored for everybody that showed up here today. So as Jeff mentioned, yes, leishmaniasis. I am the CEO and co-founder of Radical Roots. I also have a cat lab. His name is Dr. Goose, and he seems to really want to be a part of this webinar, so bear with me if he jumps in front of the screen. I founded the company because my son Remy, who is 5 now, was diagnosed at 2.5 with a super rare seizure disorder called STX-BP1. So it's a genetic disorder that affects how the neurons communicate. So it really affects every single aspect of his life. He is nonverbal, non-ambulatory, though he's very, very close to walking independently. You can check him out on our Instagram page. He's super cute. He has ataxia and apraxia, and he also has epilepsy and intellectual disabilities. So it's been quite a challenge. And as you guys know, Western medicine really does not have very much for children with epilepsy, let alone for most people with neurological disorders. So as an herbalist, I really started looking into CBD and trying to find what I could do to help Remy and make sure that he was getting the best medicine possible. So let's see. So this is sort of a mashup of all the different things that I've studied. So Remy and I have I've studied under Dr. Stephen Cohen, who I absolutely recommend. If you have a child, you should read Fire Child, Water Child, or if you just want to know about the 5 elements and how they work with children and developmentally. I mean, he's just absolutely brilliant. And then I've worked with Dr. Malello, who does the Brain Balance Program, which is another interesting program which looks at the different hemispheres and how they're communicating. I've done the Family Hope Center program with Remy, which is a program in Philadelphia that helps children with special needs and neurologic disorders, and they're really brilliant. They do a lot of functional movement, a lot of oxygen. They go into nutrition very deeply. They have a 3-day parent training conference, but it's really something that I recommend to anybody who's a practitioner who's interested in working with neurological conditions. Also, Remy and I go to a neurologist in Ecuador. It's a Cuban neurologist who studied in Russia. He does neurofeedback, oxygen therapy, detoxification, and brainwave balancing. So we go there for a month, twice a year. We've gone 5 times to Guayaquil. It's lovely. Come visit. But so from all these brilliant people and the psychotic studying that I've done over the 5 years, hopefully I can give you some information on how to help any patients that you have with neurological conditions and how we can intertwine CBD into those protocols. So first we're going to go over common neurological conditions. Then we're going to go over the endocannabinoid system a little bit and medicine from the perspective of Chinese medicine. We're not going to go too deep into that because we've sort of talked about that on other webinars. And then we'll talk about how the different stressors impact brain function. So I sort of, from all this studying, have addressed 5 different pillars of neurological health. So we'll go into that. We'll also talk about the other ways that cannabis can affect the brain, current legality and research, and then we will touch on the Radical Roots products and my Remy's Revenge formula, which is what I do use for almost all of my neurological patients, but I will talk about some of the other formulas and some other products that I recommend. So hopefully I don't talk too fast. I'm from Brooklyn, so just have Jeff come on and yell if I do. All right, so common neurological conditions. As you guys have seen, I have no doubt, neurodevelopmental disorders are an absolute epidemic right now. I mean, ADD is 1 out of 5, ADHD is 1 out of 10, autism is creeping up to 1 out of 25, sensory processing disorder. I mean, it's absolutely insane, and it's really, you know, so many people are looking for the one-size-fits-all answer, and you know, it's so nice to be talking to Chinese medicine practitioners because we all know that one size does not fit all. And really, to me, it seems very clear that all of these disorders are coming from a massive onslaught of our systems that we're just really not capable of handling. I mean, these children's gut microbiomes are so impaired, and they're eating foods that are genetically modified, and you know, they're being hammered with electromagnetic frequencies. I mean, there's so many things that are impacting our neurodevelopmental systems, and it's really quite terrifying. And it's also more terrifying because Western medicine really has very little to offer for these families. So to me, as a practitioner of Chinese medicine, I really think that we have a beautiful framework in order to work with these families and in order to help people with neurological conditions, whether it's neurodevelopmental or neurodegenerative. On the other end of the spectrum, you know, so many people are ending up with neurodegenerative disorders due to the fact that they're accumulating all these toxins and all these built up stressors throughout their lives that are impeding neurological function. So it's really important that we look at the body as a whole, look at the brain, and make sure that people are functioning optimally. So let's see. So yeah, this goes into a little bit more about the neurodegenerative disorders. And then also just another point, when you're supporting anybody with a neurological disorder, really supporting the entire family. I mean, every single inch of independence that you get for a child who has a neurological disorder, every kid that you can get to be able to go into a restaurant for a meal, or anything that seems like it's just the smallest thing, that is such a huge thing for these families. And I can tell you, you know, as a mom who's working with it right now, I mean, every inch means the world to us. And that works on the other end of the spectrum for caregivers of people with neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, you know, every inch of independence that's retained really also means the world, not only the person who's struggling with the neurological condition, but also for their loved ones. So it's also important to take a look at the family structure. I know I've been saved by some of Remy's practitioners who have helped me when I've been super stressed out. So, you know, make sure that everybody's doing okay and support the whole, you know, the whole family. Okay, so we're going to dive into the endocannabinoid system a little bit. So the endocannabinoid system is a group of endogenous cannabinoid receptors located in the brain and throughout the central and peripheral nervous systems. These consist of neuromodulatory lipids and their receptors. So the main receptors you're going to hear about are the C1 and CB2 receptors. They're located on the surface of many different types of cells within the body. So the CB1 receptors are more abundant in the central nervous system in the brain. And then the CB2 receptors are more abundant outside of the nervous system, including cells of the immune system. I think the next chart is, oh no, it's not, just joking. Where is it? Ah, here. So here's a chart of the CB1 and CB2 receptors. So it can show you sort of where they're located. So you can see the CB1 receptors in the light blue and CB2 in the dark. So it's pretty cool to see how they interact. And there's a lot more research coming out about different ways that CBD and THC and all the other cannabinoids work on the endocannabinoid system. I'm talking fast. Okay, so understanding the endocannabinoid system, the body. What's cool about hemp, if you don't realize this, we really literally evolved with this plant for so long that we have receptors for it all throughout our body. It's absolutely insane. It's really, really quite beautiful and amazing. So the body produces endogenous cannabinoids, which are known as anandamide and we're going to call it 2-AG because I can't say that. In research papers, anandamide is normally noted as AEA, just an FYI. But so these endogenous cannabinoids that we make are able to bind to both the CB1 and the CB2 receptors. Whereas THC typically binds with CB1 receptors, and CBD works sort of as in the same mechanism similar to SSRIs with some of the CB2 receptors. So it allows there to be more endogenous cannabinoids to be available in that area where the CBD is. So there's a lot of nuance to it, but that's the gist. There are also around another 113 different cannabinoids that are known in hemp. So THC and CBD are the ones that are most widely studied and most widely used. But we're doing, you know, there's a lot more research coming out on all of the other ones, and it's going to be really, really exciting to see how this medicine evolves over the next couple of years. Again, I do always recommend a whole plant extract. Especially if you're working with neurological conditions, due to the fact that THC really helps activate those CB1 receptors in the brain. You want to have at least a little bit of THC in there. I know for a lot of children with epilepsy, they need higher levels of THC in order to calm their seizures. Or if you're working with children with epilepsy or, you know, significantly intractable epilepsy, you're probably going to go pretty high up on the cannabinoid count for them. And just so you know, as a side note, if you are working with somebody who has a neurological condition and they cannot afford our particular products, you can just give them my email address. I will not let costs be prohibitive to care for our products. Okay, so and the entourage effect, we know that as herbalists. We've seen this in research studies when they try and compare pharmaceuticals to our herbs. I mean, it's just a joke. The whole is always going to be greater than the parts. And that's one of the things that's really cool about our extraction method also. We use spagyric extraction, which if you guys don't know about it, you should definitely check it out. They tincture the herbs and then they take the hemp and put it in a fire for 8 hours. And from the fire, they magically reconstitute the minerals and the salts and they put it back into tincture. And it creates this magical alchemical reaction. Which has been really incredible to see, and it's really amazing because the hemp, since it's such a mineral dense plant, we really want to make those minerals available in the tinctures. And this is the only way that I've heard of getting those available. So let's see what we have next. Okay, so here's that chart again, which is pretty cool. Oh, it has CBN in there too. L.AC gave me this chart, so thanks, L.AC. Thanks, Jeff. You're the best. Okay. So hemp from the Chinese medicine perspective. Again, Bart and I, my co-founder, did a webinar on this last year, so you're welcome to check that one out. We go into greater detail, but I just want to do a little bit of an overview. So the original text of the Divine Classic of Materia Medica ascribes these properties. So the flavor is acrid and balanced, governs the 5 taxations and 7 damages, benefits the 5 viscera, descends blood and cold chi. Excessive consumption causes one to see ghosts and run about frenetically. I'm working on that product. I will get that out at some point. Prolonged consumption frees the spirit light and lightens the body, and is also referred to as Mabo. So if you want to more, check out this article that Eric Brand wrote. If you don't know him, he's the owner of Legendary Herbs, and he's one of the leading herbal scholars in our field, and just one of the most brilliant people I've ever met, truly, and nicest also. So check out his article. It's really a phenomenal read. So in terms of channel affinity, hemp goes to the liver, the spleen, the kidneys. Just a side note, I'll say hemp or cannabis interchangeably. So hemp is really just cannabis that's been bred down so that it's less than 0.3% THC. It's the same thing. It's the same plant. It's just bred. The THC is just bred out of it, but it's just legally called hemp now. So just an FYI. So mildly cooling or cold in nature, and different processing methods can change the thermal nature. It's acrid, bitter, and sweet. It soothes the liver, extinguishes internal wind, stops spasms, calms the Shen, nourishes the heart and kidney yin, regulates the qi in the liver and spleen, stops pain, clears heat, and depending on the strain, can have different properties, both energetically and chemically, due to the cannabinoids and terpene composition. So again, we're going to have so much more information over the next years about the different strains, the different cannabinoids, and the different terpenes. There's going to be a lot of specificity going into different products in order to potentiate certain actions. And I think that's going to be really, really cool. And for those of you who don't know, terpenes are sort of the essential oils that are also in a lot of different plants. Okay, so just a little bit about CBD and the brain before I go into the 5 years of neurological health. So CBD, so the endocannabinoid system mediates a wide range of brain activity. So some of the research that I found shows that it regulates the neurotransmitters release, neural excitability, synaptic plasticity, long-term neural potentiation, neurogenesis, cell death, cell migration, innovation, and sleep cycle. So to say that it's an important factor in the brain is definitely an understatement. I mean, it really blows me away when you start looking into the different ways that CBD is helping the brain and really helping balance the body. It's really, really incredible. So it's sort of a regulator. It's really interesting how it balances things. So it's been well known for treating epilepsy. Obviously, that's where it became so popular from the CW Hemp Charlotte's Web story. I've used it a lot with my Parkinson's patients, MS patients. My patients with autism and on the spectrum have had really great results with Remy's Revenge. I had one mom call me recently and tell me that her child had his first positive call from his teacher, and that was very exciting for me. There's really great research on Huntington's and dementia. So some of the things that were interesting that I was looking at was that there's an increase in 2-AG, one of those endogenous cannabinoids, after stroke and traumatic brain injuries. So that's one way to show that implies that 2-AG, the endogenous cannabinoids, are being used to help when there's neuroinflammation and help with trauma in the brain. There's also research showing that there's a decrease in CB1 protein levels in Huntington's patients, as well as a decrease in anandamide during epilepsy. And then after an epileptic event, there will also often see an increase in 2-AG. So again, we're seeing that regulatory healing action of the 2-AG. So it's really interesting. You'll see as you start diving into it that sometimes there will be more in one area and less in another, but it really does work to balance things out, and we'll go into all of that a little bit more as we move on. There's a lot more about the specific receptors towards the end. So in compiling all this information about the brain, I get a lot of families calling and asking for information, so I had to compile it all. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold or wind heat invasion. I tried to compile it all in a way that was as easily accessible for other families to understand, so that if they had a child with special needs, that maybe they didn't have to do quite as much research as I was doing. So I started a resource page called Remy's Revenge, which is remysrevenge.com. I broke into 5 different pillars of neurological health. So there's a ton of research on there. There are a ton of book recommendations, a ton of products and supplements and other things that you can look into. I found that some parents might find it a little daunting, but I think for practitioners, you guys will enjoy it. So the first pillar of neurological health is going to be diet. As you guys know, the stomach is the foundation of health and brain function. So it's so important that your patients are getting organically grown food full of qi, good quality fats, that they're not cooking their high quality oils to high heat so that they get rancid. So what I generally recommend is a modified keto diet. I like keto for brain health, but I also think that it's important to have more vegetables, and it's also to make sure that your patients are really eating good, it's not trash keto. They're not just eating cheese and bacon all day, though both are delightful. So I'll often recommend a modified keto or the Walls protocol, which Terry Walls is I believe she's a neurologist who healed herself with progressive MS, and she wrote a book called Walls Protocol, and she has a really good cookbook, so I recommend that. The second pillar is really detoxification. So as our systems get more bogged down, our brains are unable to function as well as possible. I mean, how many houses in the United States alone have mold in them, let alone heavy metals? I was probably one of the most psychotic you could possibly meet in terms of toxins for Remy, as you might pick up on. And Remy scored pretty high in a ton of heavy metals when we did a heavy metal testing. One of the heavy metals was antimony, which was actually from my chemotherapy for leishmaniasis when I was in high school. So I was less than pleased about that, because I do remember telling all the doctors when I was nursing that I thought I was detoxifying that into him, and they refused that as a possibility. But I was right. Next, we've got oxygen. So there's a ton of research on oxygen for neurological conditions. I've also been looking into a lot of photobiomodulation. So using sunlight and using low-level red lights and infrared lights. Those are all really, really cool ways to help our kids and our loved ones. There's the light. I was doing that right before I came here. So they have like a intranasal laser, and then lasers that you can put, like these lights you can put on there, all sorts of weird stuff. I've gotten into all sorts of crazy, weird, fun stuff, but it all is really, really interesting for brain health. And there's so much we can do to help potentiate the brain function. Functional movement. So functional movement, if you're doing Qigong, if you're doing breath work, if you can do that with your patients, that's going to tie into the oxygen also. So get your patients doing things that are doing balance and bilateral movements. That cross crawl movement is so important for the corpus callosum. That way you can get the left and right brain really communicating fluidly. Remy, I do try and get him to walk at all. He's very close, but I made him wait. And, he crawls about a mile a day, because when he gets to the point where he's going to walk, I want him to be neurologically ready to do so. And so the brain sort of evolves and develops from the bottom forward. And so naturally you want children to develop through those movement stages as well. Those movements correlate with the brain maturation. Okay. So, you know, you want the kid to be army crawling, and then you want them creeping on hands and knees, and then you want them cruising and walking when they're ready, which Remy is just about ready. And then last, there's supplements. So there are a ton of great supplements for brain health. I've gotten into the weird biohacking world, as you heard. CBD really, really blows me away. I've seen so many patients just have revolutionary changes with it. And it's really, really exciting how much it's helping people and how many ways that it can. So I'm excited to see the potential for it to grow and advance even further than where it is. So you guys can check out Remy's Revenge if you have any other questions on those. I'll go into so what I've been finding recently in my studies is that CBD really goes into the school of the spleen and stomach. So there are so many ways that CBD is affecting the gut-brain axis, and that's sort of part of what I found so interesting is that, you know, to me, every kid that I've seen, every neurological case that I've worked on, it's always the gut. You need to fix the gut first. Otherwise, you know, there's no way that the brain's going to function optimally. You know, every single child that I know who has a disability or a seizure or has a gut issue, every single one, hands down, Remy included. And I've worked on his gut his entire life. It's very, very challenging. So, it's cool to see that CBD is working on the gut in order to help potentiate the brain function. So, the gut-brain axis. So, again, the Pi Wei Lun was right. Shocker. So the stomach is central to health, and we know this to be true for all neurological health. You just think of Buzhong Yiqi Tong. You want to rectify the center so that the clear yang can rise and the brain can function optimally. I'm hoping to put out a Buzhong soon because I just want it. So the gut-brain bidirectionally communicate via numerous pathways, and one of which is the vagus nerve. I was just reading an article suggesting that serotonin is actually travels along the vagus nerve to the brain. So one of the ways that they think that SSRIs is actually working is by increasing serotonin transmission along the vagus nerve, which is pretty cool. I don't know if that actually pans out, but that was what this one study was suggesting. But the vagus nerve is really interesting between the gut and the brain, and it communicates between the brain and the microbiome. So research has been showing that CB1 receptors may modulate the activity of the vagal neurotransmitters and then influence gut function. So they may also participate in regulating peristalsis, which is also a massive GI problem, which often leads to SIBO. So the vagal nerve is so essential for the gut-brain axis. And it's really cool to think that there are CB1 receptors all throughout it that are helping the brain and the gut communicate. And it makes so much sense clinically when you're watching this. The next one is, okay, so this is bacteria. So again, it's almost impossible that you're going to see a child or an adult with a neurological disorder without some sort of digestive issue. So the overuse of pesticides, the overuse of antibiotics, the drastic increase in C-sections, GMO crops, I mean, they're just completely wrecking our bacterial diversity. So we're seeing dysbiosis, SIBO, SIFO, leaky gut, and then that's often leading to autoimmune disorders or inflammatory disorders. So recent studies have shown that cannabis can also stop negative changes to the microbiome in obese patients and is being researched as a way to prevent colorectal cancer. Actually, there's a ton of research on CBD and colorectal cancer. So if you have any patients who you suspect have colorectal cancer or may have it, I highly, highly recommend that you get them on cannabis. It's really, really cool. What it's been able to do. So look into that a little bit deeper and check that out. Another thing that I saw, CB1 receptors are much higher in those with active celiac and diverticulitis. And then there's, oh yeah, well, I'll talk about that later. But yeah, no, it's really cool. If you look into the research on the different inflammatory gut issues, you'll see that that there's almost always an increase in either one of the endogenous cannabinoids or some of the, or decrease in the enzymes that break them down in these disease states. So it's really showing what an important part they're playing. Another thing that I really, really appreciated and thought was super nerdy goodness was that cannabis has been shown to potentiate Akkermansia monophilia, which is a strain of bacteria which is being researched for both treatment of MS and epilepsy. What's also super cool about this particular strain is that it is also potentiated in keto diet. So that is another way that ketosis might be helping neurological conditions, which is why keto was developed. There are some researchers who are working on creating neurological medicine through doing through potentiating specific bacteria in the gut. So I think that that's one of the most exciting new realms of medicine for neurological health. So I'm excited to see how that happens. Okay. So, so this is just some of the proposed mechanisms underlying the endocannabinoids' anti-inflammatory effects. So this one research study suggested that gut microbiota host interaction works through anti-inflammatory properties that are displayed through upregulation of both the cannabinoids and the TRPV1 receptors, and downregulation of endocannabinoid degrading enzymes. And then mucosal immunity, they suggested that modulation of inflammatory cells infiltration, pro-inflammatory cytokines release, and degranulation of mast cells. So a lot of times we're going to see patients who have leaky gut and who have, sort of systemic allergies to a ton of foods. So you're going to see, that mast cell activation syndrome a lot, leaky gut often. So CBD, there's been a lot of research that shows that CBD, through activating the CB2 receptors in the immune system of the GI, is able to help with healing leaky gut, and again, helping with potentiating with the positive bacterial balance in the gut. So enteric glial cells and neurons, reduced activation numbers of the toll-like receptors, superfamily on the EGCs. So the toll-like receptors are going to come up a lot. Those are really interesting and something that cannabis seems to work on both in the brain and throughout the body. Mucosal permeability, again, the CB1 receptors activations increases plasma levels of the LPS. So you can check out that article. Just as a clinical note, I find that a lot of patients have GI issues, again, a lot of parasites. So if you have a patient who has epilepsy with full moon or acts up a lot with the full moon, that's lunacy. So that's often going to be connected with parasites. So I would check into parasites for that. I've been using rhizoles recently, which are like ozone infused into weird herbal extracts. They're really cool. I highly recommend them. But then either way, what'd you do, Jeff? How'd it go? Oh, yeah. Either way, you want to look at the underlying pathogenesis. So you want to look and make sure that they don't have SIBO. Some of that horror work can be really great to isolate and see what's going on with different, to palpate and see what's going on with the gut. You want to make sure that they don't have candida. So I really like biocidin. I really like the classical pearls products. And diatomaceous earth can be really great for helping with parasites also. And then on the flip side, I really like Restore, which is a really great product to help restore the gut integrity. And then I have been using the Thrive probiotics, and they just came out with like an IgG. I'm like looking for it on my counter. They just came out with a new IgG supplement, which I think is really, really interesting, and I haven't seen that from anybody else. So I just started taking that and throwing it in Remy's yogurt. This kid is such a trooper. You have no idea. You should see him take his supplements. So I've been throwing his yogurt, and we'll see how it goes. But we both definitely have a lot of allergies, and I have some mast cell issues. Yay. Okay, so toxins. So our environment is fully toxic. There's really no way around it. Heavy metals are in our soil. We've got mold in our houses. We've got chemicals and everything. I mean, I think there was a research study about 15 years ago that showed that the cord blood of infants had well over 200 different chemicals in it. So even us more aware practitioners of the chemical load, it's still almost impossible to avoid it. So when you're detoxifying anybody, you've got to do it in a very conscientious. You've got to make sure that their detoxification pathways are functioning well. So there's a lot of, again, you can go onto Remy's Revenge and check that out. But use your Chinese medicine, your qigong, your herbs. Make sure that the liver and the kidneys are working functionally. You can help people detox through the skin. But you've got to keep an eye out for glyphosate, which is just insidious. It's Roundup, and there's a massive correlation to home use of glyphosate to a tremendous rise in neurodevelopmental disorders. So in order to get rid of glyphosate, one really simple thing is that you can use apple cider vinegar. There's an enzyme in there that's been known to break down glyphosate. So you can just have your patients do the apple cider vinegar with some water and some local honey. It's going to give them some really beneficial goodness and help them detoxify. Mold obviously is a massive problem. I've used a whole bunch of things for that. I personally really like ozone. Remy gets ozone baths in Ecuador, and I always jump in. I think the nurses think I'm crazy. But it's really, really powerful. And if you're somebody who can use it well, it's really effective. Heavy metals, again, you're going to look into chelating those and getting them out nice and safely, nice and slow. You want them to, yes, raw apple cider vinegar. Sorry, I shouldn't look at that. But yeah, you don't want the heavy metals to move from one place and then travel to somewhere else in the body. Obviously, pharmaceuticals can have a very high toxin load on the body as well. And I have also which CBD is really awesome for helping your patients get off of pharmaceuticals. You guys should totally look into some of this research, but CBD helps raise the levels of certain pharmaceuticals, and then it helps you really easily titrate them down, ideally working with their Western practitioner. So, and then last but not least, I've been nerding out on the electromagnetic issues that we have. So cell phones, Wi-Fi, all of that. It's really terrifying when you go down that rabbit hole. I mean, watching people wear those earbuds and seeing them throw current through their midbrain in ponds just about drives me crazy. So look into that. There are easy ways that you can help your patients reduce their electromagnetic load. Put your phone on airplane mode at night, turn off your router at night. Don't do that. Don't wear those pods. But it is something that likely more and more research is going to come out about, and I recommend you look into it a little bit more. For what the okay, stress. So stress is literally impossible to avoid. I always tell my patients that we are not actually made to live under these circumstances. It's just batshit crazy. I mean, the bear is supposed to come once a month. Now there's a bear around every single corner when, your boss or your bills or whatever it is due. So we are all under chronic stress, and we see that daily with our patients. The vagus is something that I've found to be really powerful in terms of holding trauma. So in my clinical experience, patients have been able to release trauma and reach new levels of healing when I'm adding CBD to their acupuncture protocols. So by allowing that sort of to relax and increasing your vagal tone, it sort of allows the patients to kind of let go of some of that trauma. CBD also helps increase neurogenesis in the hippocampus. So it actually helps us change how we process trauma by creating new neural pathways. And this is also super cool when using CBD for PTSD patients. I use it a lot for patients with for veterans. We actually give 40% off to all veterans. And as a side note, if you're in San Diego or if you want to in any way support a really amazing, amazing human, Guy Page has in-spot community acupuncture in San Diego. It's a free clinic for vets and for first responders. We donate CBD there, but you know, any way that you can help him or help the veteran community, I think it's a tremendous service. But yeah, so it's CBD, again, helping neurogenesis. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So it's really creating neural pathways. It's allowing people to heal in really deeper levels from this trauma. CBD also acts as a 5-HT1A agonist, which is a subtype of the serotonin receptor. So this is one of the pathways that a lot of the pharmaceuticals use in order to alleviate anxiety and boost mood. One Spanish study on animals even stated their findings indicate that CBD could represent a novel, fast-acting drug via enhancing both serotonergic and glutamate cortical signaling through the 5-HT1A receptor-dependent mechanism. So again, I have a lot of patients with anxiety. I was working in New York. I just moved to Colorado, but that way towards but I had a lot of very high stress patients, and CBD was just such a great way to help them calm down, get those deeper levels of healing. And a lot of them we were able to wean off of their medications. There was one research study, it was like 2 years ago, I think, that showed that 50% of, no, I think it was like 70% of people, sorry, I should know the difference, 50 to 70. 70% of people who started using CBD were able to get off of their pharmaceuticals, which is just an insane number. I have to look up that study again. I'll give it to Jeff to put up. Okay. Oh, all right. I'm good on time. Okay. So the voltage gated. So, okay. Back it up. So cannabis affects the brain in so many ways. And so, as I was saying, it's really regulatory. So it balanced things out. So like one thing that I thought was really cool, where did I put it? I don't know. I lost it. Oh, here it is. So a new study shows that depleting anandamide in the hippocampus increases stress, anxiety, and fear. Alternatively, the same researchers found that the opposite happens in the limbic system. So it's really unknown how exactly it's regulating, and we're finding out that there are all these different receptors that it's working on. It's working on neurotransmitters releasing. It's working on synaptic connections. I mean, it's really just such a beautiful plant, and we're just starting to tip the iceberg on how it works. So the voltage-gated sodium channels, these are implicated in a lot of the really, really drastic forms of epilepsy and are associated with chronic pain. This makes it a potential target for CBD interaction since it's been reported to reduce pain and seizures. Yes, I have a good amount of friends whose children, including mine, have, you know, some of the worst seizure disorders you could possibly see. And I've watched CBD really change people's lives in such traumatic ways. And I cannot tell you quite how heartbreaking and challenging it is to be a mother of a child with a seizure disorder. So, you know, any one seizure, you know, just like I was saying about any 1 inch, saving that one seizure, getting that 1 inch, it means the world to us. The TRPV1 and the other transient receptor protein channels, these are really cool. They're also known as the capsaicin receptors. So these are found in sensory nerves and are abundant in arthritic synovial tissue. They're also involved in neurogenesis and brain development, synaptic transmission, and they play a key role in development of several neurological diseases. So again, these, you know, CBD is so phenomenal for pain. It's phenomenal for visceral pain. And for visceral pain, it's working on the TRPV1 receptor in the gut. So it's really interesting how it's working. again, and I'm sure that the actions that it's having on healing the gut lining and balancing the gut microbes, my other cat's over here now, is helping with the pain management as well. The voltage-gated calcium channels. So these are some other ion channels which are targeted by a lot of seizure drugs. So this is another way that they're working on it. I always found it interesting that there are some of these receptors are activated by heat. And for Remy and for a lot of the other kids I know, they'll have that heat rising with epilepsy for sure. I mean, Remy would wake up with like circles of sweat around his head and his pillow, and it would just drive me crazy. We did low-level lasers on kidney 1 in Ecuador, and I think that really helped that actually. I can't tell you what it was exactly though, because the doctor doesn't speak English. And then some of the other suggested mechanisms of CBD, which could be anti-epileptic, include the antagonism of the G-coupled protein receptors, protein 55, modulation of adenosine, A1 and A2 receptors, voltage-dependent anion-selective channels, and tumor necrosis factor alpha. But yeah, so they're looking into so many different ways that it's working, and it's really, really amazing to see how it's going. All right, so yeah, so as I was saying, we're going to be learning so much more about all these other cannabinoids, and I think it's going to be really cool. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning. Who was that with? Oh, Dr. McCullough, who was talking about with an expert on CBD, and he was going into THCV and how effective it is for epilepsy and some other neurological conditions, Alzheimer's also, which I found interesting. And so THCV is actually the raw form of THC. But it does not actually have any, it doesn't get you stoned. So so I'm thinking of maybe juicing some of our hemp and seeing how that goes for Remy. But so with the passing of the Farms Bill in this past year, more and more research is going to be coming out showing exactly how these magical cannabinoids are working in the body, how they're actually working to regulate so many systems. I mean, it really is just absolutely incredible, sort of overwhelming, because you look at it and think that, you know, nothing could be doing quite this much. But it truly is. It really is just such a master regulator for our entire system. And that's, again, because of the long history and the evolution. So CBG is the chemical parent of CBD and THC. And it's interesting for treating glaucoma, irritable bowel disease, Huntington's disease, and colorectal cancer. CBN, high heat oxidizes THC into CBN. So it's a strong sedative, helps with bone growth, antibacterial, and uses a topical for psoriasis. We'll be coming out with some topicals for psoriasis and eczema and for facial beauty very soon, a couple months, which I'm really excited about. And then we also have CBC, which is derived from CBGA, which is antimicrobial, antiviral, antidepressant, and stimulates bone growth and helps with migraines. So it's pretty interesting to see the different ways that it's going, and you can start to find some products out there that are higher in certain ones. I always recommend that you look, you know, especially for you guys as herbalists, it's really cool to have this information. For us, you can go onto my website, and if you check out, if you go to the shopping page, if you go to any of the formulas, it'll have the most recent lab testing there. So it'll have the listing of all the terpenes that are in there. It'll have all the cannabinoids that are in there. And what's cool with this spagyric extraction is that my manufacturer, Warren, who's just absolutely brilliant, is finding that on the extended chromatography, they're actually finding cannabinoids that haven't been labeled yet. So that's pretty cool. Yes, I have been using CBD for patients with ADHD and ADD, and it does really, really phenomenally. And again, because it has that nice action of calming the mind and helping sedate some of that overwork and over connectivity in some ways, calms the Shen. So I use, I often will use the Remy's Revenge, but sometimes I will use Rest and Relax. So it depends. I'll go into the formulas just a little bit more for, you know, which ones I use for neurological conditions. But so, oh, I spoke a lot. So Radical Roots, I'll just give you a little bit about the brand. So it was started by me and my co-founder, Bart Beckerman, who's also a licensed acupuncturist. We really, really love every detail that we've put together. So we use spring wind herbs, which are obviously the best. All hail to Andy Ellis for all the amazing work that he's done over the years for bringing the highest quality herbs to the States. He obviously does extensive testing, but then we do really extensive testing. Uh-oh. Are you all getting broken audio? Should I not talk? Hi, I'm closer. We use our farmer, Thomas, uses biodynamic organic farming, beyond organic farming techniques. So basically, he uses as close to no-till farming techniques as possible. So he rotates 8 different cover plants that are native to Colorado, so that he uses that in order to potentiate the different minerals and fungus and bacterial balance. It's really, really brilliant. It helps remineralize the soil. It's really eco-friendly, and I mean, this guy brings so much love and respect into the plants. He goes up to the men and brings down like healing spring water to plant them. He probably like sings to them when he plants it. It's just it's magic. Our manufacturer uses the spagyric extraction, which I mentioned earlier, which is just really, really super cool. And then Bart and I are available to talk to you and help in any way that we can in troubleshooting with your patients. Starting in the next week or two, except for when I'm in Ecuador, I'm going to try and block out a couple hours every week. So you can schedule like a 20-minute consult with me if you have any patients that you want to troubleshoot with. So that's always available for you. But you can always just email me too. I like nerding out on stuff. Sometimes it takes me a day or two. And then L.A. is our exclusive wholesaler. I've got to say, I just spent the whole weekend with L.A. at PCOM Symposium, and I've worked with them for about 1.5 years now. I just have to say, they really are some of the sweetest human beings you could possibly meet, and it's incredible how knowledgeable and passionate they are about our field, for none of them being acupuncturists. So I'm super grateful for them and all that they've done. Oh wait, where's the Remy's Revenge? Oh, we're missing the Remy's Revenge formula. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Remy's Revenge. Ta-da! So I have the whole formula with the dosing on our Instagram. Full spectrum. I'll tell you in a second, Kelly. I should not look at the question, sorry. Okay, so Remy's Revenge works to nourish the kidneys, clear heat, resolve damp, and anchor the spirits. So the chief herbs in the formula are Tianma, Gotang, and Shurjuiming. Those all work together to extinguish the wind and anchor the liver yang. All 3 herbs have a long history of use to clear wind. Maimendong, Shengdi, Nuzhenjia, and please pardon my opinion, I know I'm horrible, are all cooling and nourishing. They tonify the yin in the blood, and they clear heat, nourish the kidneys, nourish the liver and the heart. Kidney and liver yin or blood deficiencies that lead to pathogenic heat or yang rising patterns are often the source of wind disorders. By nourishing and cooling these organs, we can address the underlying pathologies. So then we also use Danshen and Bai Xiao to tonify and move the blood. Danshen strongly affects the blood in the chest and calms the mind, while Bai Xiao nourishes the blood and relaxes the sinews. Bai Xiao is at a pretty hearty dose in there. Zhurza and Huangliang work together to clear the heat, the 3 jiaos. So it's not only clearing the underlying pathogenic heat, but prevent the heat harassing the heart and stoking the wind. These herbs work acutely and chronically to prevent wind. And then we have Tianzu Huang and Fushen to address damp and phlegm accumulation that can lead to wind and phlegm missing the mind, and Zhangfu to help spread the liver qi just a little bit. So this formula, it's really, really nicely balanced. You know, again, I use it for almost all of my patients with neurological disorders. It's where I'll start them with. Sometimes I'll start people on the complete spectrum, which is, I love that one so much because it tastes so good and it just shows the quality of the hemp. I mean, it really to me, when I taste our complete spectrum versus other brands, and there are some other really phenomenal brands, it's full of chi. It's such a difference to me. So I love that one, and I love starting people on it because it's a higher cannabinoid count than our other formulas, and it'll give you a good baseline to see how they're responding just to the CBD. Then sometimes I'll move them onto some of the formulas, or sometimes I'll do it opposite. It sort of depends on what my instinct is with the patient. But Remy's Revenge is amazing for neurological conditions, but it's also awesome for that liver yang rising pattern, people who are super anxious, have that heat rising. I've had patients who have panic attacks who I've started on Rest and Relax, trying to really nourish the Shen. The Rest and Relax is like a modified Swanzhou Rentong. So sometimes I'll start, people with anxiety on that. And then some of them, it doesn't touch it, and I'll put them on Remy's, and, within a couple of days, it's just a total game changer for them. Also some patients with OCD, autism, really want to anchor that chi away from the head. It's a great formula for you. In terms of gut health, a lot of times I will recommend the Revive, because that's a kidney spleen tonic. So if I have patients whose foundational issues is a deficiency, then I might starting with the Revive there instead also. So yeah, I just yabbered a lot. I hope this was helpful in any sort of way, and hopefully I can answer some of your questions.
Hello, thank you, Chloe.
Thanks, Jeff.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Well, that was amazing. I know everyone was very interested in everything you had to say, and we definitely have some questions coming in. So let's get started. Well, first question is, what were you taking for leishmaniasis?
Oh, pentostam, which is like basically, it's pentostam is antimony. It's just antimony. They just gave me, I didn't curse. I almost cursed, Jeff. They just gave me like IV antimony as a 15-year-old for a month. Now I think there's a topical, just an FYI.
All right. And then let's see. Do you have any information on dosing with CBD?
Yeah, we have a great dosing, which I will share with L.AC to put up a link to that Bart wrote. But so there's a couple of different ways to go about it. A lot of people recommend a loading dose. So basically for generations, centuries probably, we're having our animals eat hemp. We had hemp and cannabinoids as a part of our diet. And then over the past century, we really haven't had that. So a lot of people do have sort of an endocannabinoid deficiency. Giving them a loading dose can be really helpful. What we found with our products is that they are very potent with the spagyric extraction. So I typically will start people on sort of a half a milliliter, a half a dropper, twice a day, see how they do for a couple days. And then if they're not getting the results that I want, I'll bump them up to about 3 milliliters for about 2 or 3 days as a loading dose, and then reduce them back down and see how they do. But I'll send the dosing chart that has a lot more information.
Perfect. And I do apologize. It seems like my connection keeps getting in and out here. So if this causes anyone problems, I apologize. Looks like we have a couple questions in the chat tab here. Can CBD help with sensory hearing issues stemming from the brain? And if so, which product would you recommend?
So it does seem to help with sensory issues. I've had a lot of kids that I've worked with sensory issues. Remy is hyposensitive, so that's not something we work with for him. But in terms of dulling some of that hyperexcitivity of the brain, CBD is really fantastic for it. I don't know that there's much research on it, but I will look into that because I'm curious what they're doing. There's been a lot of money and research that was just put into autism and CBD and autism spectrum disorder. So I think that there should be a lot more research coming out pretty soon, but I will look into that and see if there's anything I can find that's more specific.
All right, and then Margie would like to know, for patients that are taking CBD every day long-term, do you have general recommendations for balancing the properties of this herb long-term, dietary or herbal, or signs that you would look out for that they might want a lower dosage or to take a break?
So
Chloe?
yeah,
Did we lose you?
can you hear me?
Hello?
I see you. Hello?
Hello?
I'm here.
Okay, sorry. I think it froze.
I was like, oh, I didn't curse. I almost cursed again. See, this is bad. They're not going to invite me back.
Did you hear the question?
Yes, but now I forgot it.
Okay.
Sorry, will you repeat the question?
Okay. So for patients that are taking CBD every day long term, do you have general recommendations for balancing the properties of this herb, either dietary or herbal, or signs that you would look out for that they might want a lower dosage or to take a break?
So for CBD products that are full spectrum, I haven't seen anybody have any adverse side effects from them. It's always possible. But the way I really look at it is more of like a tonic. Like it's like a supplement that we are missing in our bodies. Like we need, like, as our bodies are stressed, we run through our endocannabinoid stocks essentially, and then we become deficient in it. So being able to supplement in that is really helpful. If you have patients who are sort of aware of their bodies, a lot of times once you start using CBD, once you have used it for a while, you sort of build up your endocannabinoid tone, which is like a weird term that somebody decided. But once you build up your endocannabinoid tone and sort of like have a ready stock of endocannabinoids, you're not in this deficiency state, then a lot of times you're able to reduce the amount that you're taking. But I mean, dietarily, it's a liver, it nourishes the liver and the kidneys. So you could look into, you can just check out how your patients are working and add, supplement their diet accordingly, with the 5 elements. One thing that's interesting in terms of stopping or taking a break is if you are working with a patient with a neurological condition, like with epilepsy, they'll call it like a reset. So sometimes they'll have you stop for like 3 or 4 days after you've been on it for a while. And then it sort of like lets all your endocannabinoid receptors sort of like flush out. And then once you hit it again with the CBD really hard, a lot of times it'll help sort of reboot the system and help, kind of get strong actions that you had in the beginning.
All right. Next question is from Janelle. How many servings are in a 1 ounce bottle, and how much would you charge patients?
So I just finished this bottle right before our webinar. So in the complete spectrum, it's 1 ounce, and this is 750 milligrams. So this one doesn't have any Chinese herbs in it. So this one's about 22 milligrams per dropper. So that's a pretty high dose. You could give somebody a half a dropper twice a day. That's where I would normally start people, around between 10 and 15 milligrams or 70 milligrams of CBD once or twice a day. If they're in more pain, then I would go higher. Or if they're struggling with other things more significantly. So for that, then there would be 60 doses in this one. And for the other one, it would probably be, I think it would be about 45. If we were starting at that, like around 10 to 15 milligrams twice a day. Oh, and for charging it, we sell it retail for 100. L.A.C sells it to you for half of that. They're awesome and give you guys lots of discounts. What you sell it to your patients for is up to you. But I do think that practitioners should make money off of their work, and I do, it really is important to me, and I'm very passionate about helping practitioners in any way I can in terms of successful practices, because you guys are all amazing and helping change the world. So if I can in any way help you, then I'm very happy.
Well, and I know you touched on this, but the big thing to know here is that your products are only available either to practitioners on our site at wholesale or retail on your site to patients. You can't find it in other stores or other places, so it's not going to be something widely available out there. So it is a lot more unique and special for the practitioners to offer to their patients.
Yeah.
And then next question would be from Lynette, and please spell the topical taken for leishmaniasis.
Oh, I don't know what the topical is for leishmaniasis. I just took the Pentostam, which was the like IV chemotherapy. But I just remember I read an article like, I don't know, almost 10 years ago probably, that said that they had either developed or were developing a topical for cutaneous leishmaniasis. So I sort of lost my mind. I was on home instruction when I had leishmaniasis, so it's a whole thing. But yeah, so I haven't looked into that in a long time.
So you had touched on this a little bit, but somebody asked, what is the dose for oral what dose of oral CBD is recommended for pain?
For pain, it depends. It's really also patient dependent, like how big is the patient, how clean is their diet, how are they metabolizing things, what other meds are they on. So again, I normally would start pretty low just to see how they respond. If they have to do a loading dose and then come back down. Some, if somebody's in really severe chronic pain, you can go up to 30 milligrams twice a day. That gets a little bit cost prohibitive for a lot of people. But there are some products that have higher cannabinoid counts that are out there. But yeah, I mean, we're also going to be releasing super high potency capsules very soon that will have the water soluble aspects of the hemp and the water soluble aspects of the Chinese herbs in them. So we do have a relief remedy, which is for pain. So these oils are really great. They do have the herbs in them, and the herbs are really guiding factors in them, and they're really beautiful. But we aren't able to get all of the soluble aspects of them. So we will have all of that in the capsule. So it'll be, very full strength Chinese herbs, plus the full spectrum, full strength water solubles and oil soluble hemp. So those will be released really soon. And I should have I might have the samples tomorrow. So I can't wait.
Very exciting. Well, we can't wait to have them and share with everybody. Next question is from Jonathan. Can CBD retard or have a permanent effect on cerebral development, formation, and learning processes?
CBD, I haven't seen I haven't seen it in the research. I was reading a research article that said that THC can have major issues on long-term memory for people who are using it chronically for a long time. That's probably not a shocker to many of us. CBD, I have not seen that. I've only seen research on it helping with neurodevelopment and creating increased neuroconnectivity. Again, there could be research that I'm not aware of, but I haven't seen any.
Okay. Next question is, where can we get more information about this idea of our natural endocannabinoid tone and how we are deficient?
I'm trying to think of which podcast I was listening to on that recently. Oh, I think it was Chris Kresser's podcast. He had somebody on there who had a water-soluble CBD. I'll Jeff the link to the podcast.
Perfect. So if anybody wants to email me for this information that Chloe's talking about, my email is jbloom@lasaoms.com. I'll throw it into the chat as well. Next question is CBD beneficial for uterine cancer or cancer of the female reproductive system?
CBD is beneficial. So there's a lot of research about CBD being beneficial for cancer. It depends on, from my understanding of it, which is pretty limited actually, it depends on whether things are estrogen dependent or not. So it's a little bit more nuanced than just yes or no. And it probably depends on what medication they're taking also. So it probably depends on the situation. But again, I'm going to, you're welcome to email me with more details, and I will be starting to block off a couple hours on our website so that you guys can just give me a call and we can chat and see if we can troubleshoot and if I can be helpful in any way.
Okay, and then the last question that I see for now, unless any come in the next minute or so, and actually I might be able to even take this answer or this question. Rochelle would like to know, are products available at wholesale for students in a Chinese medicine program? So if you don't, I'll take this one. So students of acupuncture and Chinese medicine do get wholesale pricing through L.A.C. OMS. So when you register for your account, just make sure to include that you're a student and then provide us with your school name and student ID information. Once approved, you'll have access to all of our products at wholesale pricing, the same as a practitioner would. And then we did get another question in. I had a feeling that's going to happen. Actually, a few more. So Elizabeth would like to know, what about THC for kids with ADHD?
Yeah, there's a lot of great research for it. It depends what state you're in. I don't even know if that's allowed. I mean, I know Remy wasn't eligible for THC in New York, and he's, you know, seizure disorders are probably the most widely researched for THC. But yes, there's a lot of research and a lot of research that's been going on ADD and autism and THC, you know, using THC full spectrum plants with slightly higher doses of THC. So THC is actually not so the legal regulation is less than 0.3%, but under 1% is what I believe is what. There's absolutely no why can't I think of this word? No stony effects as long as it's under 1%. So we cut the bar pretty low. So even just slightly higher levels of THC can be really beneficial for some of these children.
All right, and then let's see, last question. Are you aware? What was that?
No, Liz wrote in and said psychotropic.
Are you aware of benefits or research on CBD for spinal cord injuries?
No. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there is some, but honestly, it's not something I've been into. So I'm happy to, I just got this new, I like paid money for a new research site situation. So I'm happy to nerd out on any of that. So I'll look into it.
All right. Well, I mean, I just have to thank you, Chloe. This has been extremely informative. I know everyone who attended tonight has enjoyed all of this amazing content. You'll be able to find the recording on our blog in the next week or so. And 5 minutes after we end, you'll get an email with both the recording and copies of the slides, as well as a discount off of all Radical Roots products through LASAOMS.com. We have no unanswered questions, so that's great. I'd like to announce that our next webinar will be Thursday, November 1st, and it will be What If Fertility Challenges Are All About the Dai Mai with Martha Lucas. So please check our blog for the registration for that. You can visit radicalrootsherbs.com for information on Chloe's products. She also has Remy's Revenge, that's REMYS, revenge.com. She has a podcast, she has a blog. She is.
Oh, I'm launching a podcast like next week or so. If any of you work with children with neurological conditions or know anybody who does and wants to come on, I'm super stoked about it, and I want to hijack all of your brilliance. And it'll be a great resource for practitioners as well as for other families. Sorry.
Don't wait. So if anybody would like to take part in that podcast, please email Chloe at radicalrootsherbs.com. Thank you all for attending tonight. Thank you, Chloe, for this great information. And we hope you all have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.